you place your finger on the bulb of the anus and elicit the anal wink. And then he'd do this thing and he'd go, meh.
This is Legends with Bevo, thanks to Anytime Fitness Glenelg. And now, here's your host, Bevo.
Well, what a pleasure to have Dr. Lane Hinchcliffe in the studio for Legends with Bevo. Now, Lane is actually a GP. He's got his own clinic down there at Glenelg, does some really good things with youth mental health. We'll talk about it a bit later on. He's got his own Fringe Show, which we're going to talk about very soon as well. And he's got a YouTube channel. He's done it all, and you might even hear him on Triple M as well as some other radio stations and TV networks. I don't know how he has any time to scratch himself. Lane, great to have him on the show, mate.
Thanks for having us, Bevo. That's great.
Now, the very first segment we'll begin with is When Fame Came Knocking. You've got your own Fringe Show coming up. This is really cool because I've never actually met a doctor who has a Fringe Show and that's passionate about, performing arts.
Yeah.
Tell us more about the show and what we can look forward to seeing or hearing.
Well, I should probably say I'm famous in my own backyard. I don't know that yet. But, going back to my time at school, I actually, I guess, was really into music and did a lot of classical music back then. So when I was going to uni, my original uni application was to do classical music at the Con in Sydney. So I was going to be studying to be a composer and pianist. And I discovered I could sing a little bit by accident, but that's another story that I cover in the show. So funnily enough, when I went into medicine, as much as I've loved it, I've kind of always had this double career, for want of a better term, that I've still kept in touch with the arts world. So this year is the first time I've put on a Fringe Show for about 5 years. And I use I love the idea of this prepping for theatre because it came with the double sort of entendre. You've got the medical theatre and then you've got the sort of like the performing theatre. And so I've sort of used that, I guess, as a conduit to sort of go in and do a show where I cover a bit of my life story as how I became a doctor, my own story as a teenager, but also feature a bit of entertaining musical theatre songs along the way.
Oh, that's so cool.
As you do.
So have you had sort of any training in performing arts in the past? And, have you had, say, a teacher that's been helping with your singing and acting and that sort of thing?
Well, look, I did a lot. When I was younger, I trained as a vocalist, I guess, for probably about 4 or 5 years, pretty formally. And actually it was in Italian opera. So I started doing the opera singing and that. Musical theatre is something I've always enjoyed, but probably a lot more of the kind of classic theatre sort of productions, sort of like your Stephen Sondheim and bits and pieces like that. So, yeah, over the years, I've continued to sort of keep in touch with it and, had the odd little performance with State Opera or things like that. But now, I still do a little bit of singing coaching with a wonderful local teacher called Rosie Hosking. And, she's a good friend. So keep in touch with it all that way.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you've also got your own YouTube channel. Tell us about that and give that a plug as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, so that's, I've become a bit of a YouTube nerd since last year. It was funny because I never really had a lot to do with YouTube before then. I'm not great on the social media side of things, but I was sort of looking into it a bit more and realised it is actually a fantastic medium for communicating. And there's some great channels on YouTube. There's some crazy channels on YouTube. And so as I became a little bit more interested in it, I reached out to some people in the US to sort of who had their own channels and were, I guess, providing some sort of mentorship. And that sort of led one thing to another. And then before I knew it, I had my own channel. So, it's been going for about 8 months at the time of, right now. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. And I guess my channel's really targeted. I have that sort of saying, listen, learn, laugh. I want people to enjoy watching my videos. They're supposed to be a bit of fun, although, there's some serious content on there as well. But at the end of the day, it's all really about learning about your health so you can feel good about yourself.
And for people out there, how can they follow you or subscribe to you?
Yeah, so my channel's just called Dr. Lane. Yeah, that's Dr. Lane on YouTube. That's it, yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. I love it. So keep up the good work there.
Thank you.
Now, you've been a doctor for a long time, but where did that sort of passion begin? And, was it from someone in the family that was a doctor? And who's been your biggest influence on your career so far? Yeah,
it's a great question. Look, I think going through school, as I say, I was always very heavily involved in music. So I did the music all through my schooling. I was always interested in the medical science as well. Like I loved the sort of science subjects. So things like, your chemistry and biology and that. And I think as my music sort of career developed, I was looking at something a little bit different. What I loved about medicine was that there was that sort of mix of the science and the sort of the theory, but also that human interaction and that human story element, which I think is probably where my love of the arts and medicine really cross over. It's through that story element. My uncle and aunt are both doctors, and I did, look up to them a lot as I was going through school. And they were always so supportive and, helped me to do some work experience at the hospitals and kind of get to see the inner workings of medicine that way. I as I say, I really applied a bit blindly at the end of school, and I got into medicine here in Adelaide, so hence why I moved across.
I'm a fan of all those shows like your Botched and your Embarrassing Bodies and these sort of shows. And the next segment is called Weird But True. You must have some interesting stories as well, being a doctor for a number of years.
That could be its own Fringe Show, I think. Yeah, I'd have to take out a disclaimer, I think. Yeah. I reckon, if you funny stories. I think one of the, I can't believe I'm telling you this. I think one of the funniest stories was actually when I was a student and I was doing colorectal. So it was my first rotation and it was completely shit, no pun intended. But there's a weird reflex called the anal wink. And this was honestly...
what the heck?
This is still, to my day... I know, I'm supposed to be a mature doctor.
I'll be Googling that
No, and I'm not going to be demonstrating it right here. But we had this lecturer who, he was this beautiful guy, but he had this really sort of like Pommy accent, and he would explain and he'd say, you place your finger on the bulb of the anus and elicit the anal wink. And then he'd do this thing and he'd go, meh. And to this day, that is still a story that we all just crack up about. Yes, that is actually a reflex. You can Google. Somebody touches your anus very delicately, you'll clench.
There you go. I don't know where we can go from there.
Yeah. You asked for it. I'm sorry. You told me.
No, that's terrific. Well, we'll put on the serious hat for a moment now.
Okay.
This next segment is called It's Okay Not to Be Okay. So, now you do wonderful things with youth mental health. And I think this is absolutely fantastic as well because you're donating all the money that you're making from this year's Adelaide Fringe to youth mental health. What's your passion behind that, and why are you so interested in helping out the kids with youth mental health, and what I guess have you experienced that made you sort of become involved in that?
Yeah, I go into this a lot in the Fringe Show, funnily enough. I think story is such a crucial part of being a doctor and also on stage. As a doctor, you have that privilege of having people coming in and opening up and telling that really raw, unscripted story about themselves. But I think that every day we forget that we all have a story. And for what I really recognise is that a lot of people see me as a doctor that has an interest in adolescent health, but probably don't realise that behind that there's a story as well. So I went through a pretty big struggle as a teenager. School was a really tough time. I talk a little bit about it in my show. Suffered some pretty bad abuse there for a little while as well, which was pretty hard. And look, I don't tell this as in a sob story for myself. I've come through the other side. I'm very happy with where I'm at and feel very grateful for everything I have. But I've also recognised that, sometimes having those stories enables us to do one of a few things. And one of those things is to make a stand and say, I want to make a difference, because if this happened to me, it's happening to other people. I think teenagers are a forgotten area in health. We do have people who are interested in adolescent health, but it's few and far between. And I think that by and large, it's the age group that often gets overlooked. And particularly at the moment with our awareness of youth mental health getting a lot stronger and the need for more programs, I really want to, I guess, try to blitz the stereotype or the stigma by saying, well, look, we all have a story, and we've all been in times where we've struggled, myself included. So where I bring my passion to youth mental health, I guess, is as a doctor now, but as somebody who sat on the other side of the consulting room at some point and or could have sat on the other side of the consulting room when I was a teenager and would have actually really benefited from somebody listening then as well.
That's so good. And I can totally vouch for you there in terms of the bullying side of things. And not it's about me, it's about you as well today. But, I had my own really bad experiences with bullying in high school, and a lot of people do. And I just sort of think about the kids these days with social media, and thankfully, God bless, we didn't have that back in our day.
Totally.
But it was still, a horrible situation, and school's so brutal. And like you correctly said, you sort of, if you can sort of get through it, it's only a tiny part of your life, but it still sort of can leave lifelong effects. And
Absolutely.
And I think it's really important to talk about mental health and that sort of thing. And in your own experiences though with mental health and when you were going through those tough times, how did you sort of overcome these? Did you have sort of supportive family, or have someone that you sort of talked to? Or
Yeah, well, and I did. I mean, I've always had a beautiful family who are very, very supportive and great friends. But I think that looking back, the irony is that I didn't talk to anyone, actually. And part of that was because I didn't have the confidence to, and part of it was probably because I was very ashamed of what I was feeling and going through at the time. So I really admire and respect our young people today, particularly the ones who come forth and talk. They're doing something that I never could do. And admittedly, that was partly the time and it was partly the resources as well. But I think that when I was ready to talk and when I was ready to open up about that, and it was some years later, I discovered that the support was just overwhelming, to the point that if I could go back and talk to myself, and I say in the show at one point, somebody once asked me, you see teenagers all the time, if you had the 15-year-old version of yourself sitting opposite you right now, what would you say? And I remember just bursting into tears, because it was the hardest question, because I realised of all the kids I see, that would be the one I would be the hardest on. And I realised, I'd actually be saying to him, talk, it's okay, be yourself, open up.
It's great advice. And obviously there's a lot of people out there doing it really tough, and businesses going under left, right and centre, and we think about so many people and what they're going through. What sort of advice from a doctor's perspective do you sort of have for those people?
Yeah, look, this is such a horrible time. I think keep perspective. That's easy to say, I know, but I think the perspective is that in years to come, we're going to look back on this period probably like we look back on other periods of history, great wars and all those sort of things. This will be a period in our history where it will be universally recognised it was a difficult time. So keep that in perspective. And I do think that over the next few years, there is hope, things will get better. Look, I think it's really important at the moment, we're all at risk of it. There is so much information out there, and not all of it is credible and not all of it is helpful. So I think trying to keep a bit of an open mind and try to keep the emotion somewhat separated from the logical reasoning side of things. Look at sources which are a little bit more reputable. Try to sort of consider the information that's coming through and just take it day by day. Look after yourself. I think that this has been a time when, in one sense, it's been very sobering. It's made us all realise, I think, how fragile, and how much we take for granted in society. It all can just change like that. But the other side is, I think it maybe is helping us to remember what's important, and I guess by that I mean family, friends, relationships, and those are really important for your mental health. So I'd stay strong to that.
Yeah, and obviously you've got Lifeline as well, which is really important.
Very important.
And a lot of other things beyond Blue. There's so many different organisations out there that are just all about helping people out.
And look, the people that are helping, I mean, myself included, I mean, remember we are in it too, we do it tough as well. And I'm not saying, look at us, but just that I think that there's probably a lot more empathy and understanding, even from the people working in the sort of first lines or the front lines, then it can sort of just help to remember that we're in it as well.
Yeah, well said. And while we're on the topic of medical situations, this next segment, what were you thinking? You're involved with doing the vaccinations with children between the ages of 5 to 11, and that's been a very hot topic because there's a lot of parents out there that are worried about getting their kids vaccinated, and which is understandable.
Yeah.
What's been the take there? Has it been a bit of a mixed bag for you doing those vaccinations, or?
It has, but I think where we're at, we've really probably dealing with the sort of segment of the community that have already made up their mind that they want to proceed with getting the vaccinations for their kids. So we are offering the vaccinations through our clinic, although only sort of one day a week at the moment, to try to facilitate that. I think, look, I can understand there is a lot of fear and worry in this area. Parents have it really tough at the moment, and they sort of got that opinion, we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. What do we do? What do we listen to? So again, I think we've tried to just take the line of we'll provide as much unbiased evidence as we can to help people make an informed decision, and you take it from there.
Yeah, it must be a tough situation being a doctor at the moment, having people with those different opinions, and also the media throwing different things at people as well.
Oh, and I think it is. And look, and I do have some sympathy for, the people who have been hesitant about the vaccine, because I think that even with the anti-vax sort of argument, a lot of people who've been worried about vaccinations have been or felt that they've been branded or labelled anti-vax. And I think we're probably trying to use a bit more of the term now, vaccine hesitancy, as opposed to anti-vax, because a lot of them are not anti-vaccination. They're worried about the vaccinations that are available at the moment. But again, I think that does come down to, unfortunately, the way that information's been presented, because obviously I've spent a lot of time looking at these vaccinations and the evidence behind them using the reputable sources. And I actually think we're very lucky to have what we have at the moment. And I think that a lot of the concerns about the vaccinations are probably misguided, and that if we can provide a little bit less emotionally driven facts, people might feel a little bit more comfortable in the decision.
And for the people out there that are listening or watching today, what's the name of your clinic? Do you want to give that one a plug?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'd love to. Health Hub Family GP. So we're in Glenelg, down by the sunny beach. So it's a nice little spot. Great coffee shops around. Good pubs as well if it's later in the day. So after 12,
get a vaccination and go to a beer afterwards. Beautiful.
Exactly right. Yeah.
There you go. And we'll finish off with a fun segment as well. This one is called Now I'm in the Big Time.
Yep.
Now, Lane, we spoke about this a bit earlier about you being on Triple M. You're on all the other different radio networks and TV stations as well. How did this sort of first come about? And do you want to share a couple of funny stories during your time?
Yeah. No, look, I really enjoyed it. I'll tell you, I think I started doing radio around 2016. I did a bit of a radio mentorship through a guy called Sean Craig Murphy, who works on Triple M.
Done the same course.
Yeah, you've done the same course. Yeah, he did. He was really great. And following that, I thought, they talked about, to get into radio, you really had to somehow get to the producers, but they get air checks all the time. They get the radio demos all the time. So I thought, how am I going to present something to producers of Triple M to sort of say, like, if you're looking for a doctor, ring me. So I came up with this idea, and I thought, okay, what am I going to do? I put my radio check on a USB, and I went to the pharmacy and I got a box of Viagra. I took the tablet out and I put the USB in it. And then I wrote a prescription to the producer, and I actually wrote, take one. Oh no, actually I said, if you want the tablet, you have to call me. So I literally went and hand delivered that in, and in about 2 hours I got a phone call going, right, that's the most original delivery I've ever had of a radio demo. And then the next day I was invited on. So it was very funny. I often laugh. Look, Ruin Dits are brilliant. I've loved working with them, and I have to say I'm so grateful to them, because the first few times I did anything on their show, I think I was a total train wreck. It was just terrible, and they kept inviting me back, and hopefully I've got a bit better over the years. But yeah, I have a lot of fun there, and from there I think I've just been invited on other shows, and I've quite enjoyed getting onto radio now. So
yeah, that's wonderful, and obviously one of those things where they hear how good you are or see how good you are, and you end up on They
obviously didn't hear the early ones. That's good. Yeah.
We might see you like me on the Sunrise virtual pub quizzes.
Oh yeah, there you go.
So you'd be great on that. So.
It'd be great.
I should tell Sam to organise a doctor's one. That would be pretty cool.
Oh, that could be good.
And you could represent SA and then have different doctors around Australia.
We could do the anal wink. Sorry.
That'd be a team name.
But maybe don't mention that. Yeah, no. Delete that bit. Yeah.
Before I let you go, do you want to give a plug for your Fringe Show? What the name of it is?
Oh, thank you. Yes. So the show's called Prepping for Theatre. And it's completely online, so you've got no excuse to not see it. No, we're doing it as a live, not a live stream, an on-demand show. So it's playing throughout the entire Fringe Festival. Watch it from your home. I'm not doing it live. And so you buy your tickets just through the Fringe website. And Prepping for Theatre, raising awareness for youth mental health, and all profits are going towards youth mental health work.
Absolutely love your work, Dr. Lane Hinchcliffe. Thanks so much for joining us today on Legends with Bevo. I can't remember how much, I don't think I've ever laughed this much before with a doctor or one of my guests. Absolutely gold. Ain't a week. So I won't be giving them that today anytime soon.
Good party trick. It's a great, pub one. Yeah.